What if everything you've been taught about being chosen was a lie? Think about it. You've been told to look a certain way, act a certain way, even laugh a certain way just to be seen, to be liked, to be picked. But here's the uncomfortable truth they rarely say out loud. Real attraction doesn't come from how you look or how well you play the game. It comes from something much deeper, something magnetic, something ancient. It's not technique. It's not manipulation. It's energy. Goddess energy. Let that sink in. Have you ever wondered why some women seem to hold a man's full attention effortlessly, while others get ghosted, strung along, or quietly replaced? It's not luck. It's not even timing. It's that certain women unconsciously radiate a presence that feels unforgettable, undeniable, irreplaceable. And no one teaches you that in school. You see, attraction isn't about being perfect. It's about being powerful. Not forceful, but rooted, embodied, present. That kind of power doesn't beg to be chosen. It is the choice. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist who gave us a whole new language for understanding the psyche, spoke of archetypes, universal patterns or energies that live inside all of us. The mother, the warrior, the trickster, the lover, and yes, the goddess. These aren't just stories. They are ancient codes we carry in our bones. And when you awaken that inner archetype, the shift is so real, it changes the way people feel you before you even speak. The goddess isn't about seduction in the way society sells it. She doesn't perform. She doesn't shrink to fit. She doesn't wait by the phone. She moves like she remembers exactly who she is. You've probably spent years trying to be good enough, to prove you're worthy, to make someone stay, to be the one he calls back, the one he chooses. Maybe you've replayed conversations in your head, wondering what you should have said differently, or tried to fix yourself into the version of you that would finally be the one. But let me tell you this, and I say it with everything I have, that was never your fault. You were taught to seek approval instead of power, to earn love instead of recognize your own. But here's the thing, your worth doesn't live in someone else's recognition. It lives in your energy, and that energy is yours to reclaim. The moment you begin to embody your true essence, not the watered-down version, not the polite version, but the whole, alive, complex, radiant you stop chasing love and start drawing it in. Because the woman who owns her energy doesn't get picked. She becomes the only choice that makes sense. Stick with this, because once you understand this energy, you'll stop chasing and start choosing. You were told to be nice, to be likable, to not take up too much space. But here's the secret. Power never asks for permission. Let me tell you about her. She's the one who always remembers birthdays. She checks in. She listens more than she speaks. She's the safe place, the steady one, the good girl. She never complains, never raises her voice, always says yes, always makes room for someone else. And still somehow she's always the one who gets left behind. Have you ever known that girl? Maybe you are that girl. You've been praised for your kindness, your patience, your loyalty. But behind closed doors, there's a different truth. You feel invisible. Like no matter how hard you try, people don't choose you. Not really. Not fully. They come to you when they need comfort. Then they leave when things get serious. It's like you're always the warm-up act, never the headliner. And here's what no one tells you. Being endlessly nice, agreeable, and low maintenance does not make you magnetic. It makes you forgettable. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the parts of you you were taught to hide or reject. Your anger, your desire, your ambition, your boundaries, your voice that says no. All of that got pushed down, buried beneath the surface. Not because you are weak, but because you were raised in a world that told you those things make you too much, too loud, too emotional, too intimidating. So you split yourself. You became the version that was easy to love, easy to digest. You trimmed the edges, softened the fire, learned how to be less. But here's the paradox. When you hide your shadow, when you bury the parts of you that carry raw truth, you don't become safer, you become invisible. People sense the absence of your fullness. They feel that you are editing yourself, and that dulls your light more than any flaw ever could. You are a fire. But they taught you to live like a matchstick contained, cautious, quick to burn out. And love? Real love? It's not drawn to the smoke. It's drawn to the blaze. Have you ever felt like no one really sees you even when you're trying your best? That feeling is not a flaw in you. It's a symptom of a world that conditioned you to shrink. But here's the good news. That fire in you never died. It was only dimmed. You still have access to the full, unapologetic woman you were before you learned to hide. She lives in your shadow, and reclaiming her is not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering someone you've always been. Because the parts of you you were taught to be ashamed of, your boldness, your wildness, your honest no, your unfiltered yes. Those are the very parts that make you unforgettable. You don't have to keep living halfway. You don't have to wait for someone to finally notice you. The moment you bring your shadow back into the light, you stop being a background character in someone else's story and start becoming the main character in your own. Let that part of you rise. Not later. Now. She didn't say a word when she walked into the room. She didn't try to impress. She wasn't louder than anyone else. She didn't need to be. Yet every eye turned toward her, not out of curiosity, but out of recognition. Some part of them remembered her before they even knew her name. This isn't about being more feminine. It's about being more you. You see, true radiance doesn't come from what you wear, how you pose, or how many rules you follow from a dating blog. It comes from presence, from embodiment, from a deep sense of inner permission that says, I am allowed to take up space. I am allowed to exist fully. I am allowed to be seen. Carl Jung understood this long before it became a trend. He taught that inside all of us live powerful archetypes, ancient patterns of being that shape how we move through life. These archetypes aren't fantasies or fairy tales. They are blueprints of the human experience, especially when it comes to the feminine psyche. Among them are the goddess, the lover, the queen, and the mystic. Each one carries a different frequency. The lover awakens desire and sensuality. The queen commands boundaries and grace. The mystic lives from intuition, connected to something beyond logic. And the goddess? She is the root, the source, the all-encompassing embodiment of the feminine in its wholeness. Goddess energy is not about seducing anyone. It's not about being better than another woman. It's not about playing the part of divine or perfect. It's about remembering who you are when you are no longer performing. It's the way your energy speaks before your voice does. It's the quiet command in your eyes, the way you carry your body, the way you stay rooted even when the room gets loud. And here's what changes everything. There is no single way to be her. One woman may express the goddess through fierce independence and wild laughter. Another through stillness, deep empathy, and magnetic calm. One may show up in bright red lips and bold steps, another in silence and steady gaze. Each of them authentic, each of them whole, each of them radiant, not because they are the same, but because they are true. You were never meant to be a copy. You were meant to be a current. But if you were taught to disconnect from your emotions, from your body, from your deep wants, you may have forgotten how it feels to be in your own energy. Not edited, not pleasing, not measured by how others respond, just whole. And here's where the shift happens. Not when you learn more tricks, but when you start listening inward. Ask yourself this: what part of me have I silenced to be accepted? Because that part, the bold, wild, sensual, honest, even messy part, is not your flaw, it is your flame. When you welcome her back, the world begins to respond differently. People feel your energy before they even understand why. They lean in. They remember you. Not because you're trying, but because you're finally letting yourself be. This is not a performance. It's a reclamation. You don't need to force attraction when you're fully in your presence. You don't need to audition for love when your energy is grounded in truth. Because the woman who embodies her archetype, her own unique expression of the goddess, doesn't seek permission to exist. She just is. And that's what makes her unforgettable. So, this is the moment. The moment you stop asking, am I enough? And start asking, what part of me have I silenced? Let that question guide you. Let it open you. Let it bring you back to yourself. Because when you walk into the room as you fully, freely, unapologetically, you don't have to chase anything. You become the thing that is chaste. They told you to be agreeable, to smile more, to not make things uncomfortable. But goddess energy, it doesn't beg, it doesn't chase, it magnetizes. There is a moment quiet, but powerful when a woman realizes she's spent years living for the nod of approval. Not because she's weak, but because she was taught that being accepted is the same as being loved. You learn early how to read the room, how to lower your voice, how to give more than you take. You learn to ask, silently, with every move, am I doing this right? Am I enough for you to stay? But what happens when the room never really sees you? What happens when the love you keep trying to earn never truly lands? That's where the shift begins. Carl Jung called it individuation, the journey of becoming fully, uniquely yourself. Not the version shaped by rules or roles. Not the mask you wear to fit in, but the you underneath it all. The raw self, the whole self. The self who doesn't need to be understood by everyone because she's finally understood by herself. And this is not a straight road, it is messy. It asks you to let go of roles that kept you safe. It challenges you to look in the mirror and ask, whose life am I actually living? The good girls? The peacekeepers? The version they liked more because she never made too much noise? When you start this journey, everything changes. You stop asking, does he like me? And start asking, do I even like how I feel around him? You stop molding yourself to keep someone interested. Instead, you become deeply curious about your own energy, how it expands or contracts in someone's presence. This isn't ego, it's alignment. When a woman moves from approval-seeking to embodiment, you can feel it before she says a word. She no longer waits to be picked. She chooses. She doesn't ask if she's too much. She wonders if the room is ready for her. And that shift? It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's magnetic. You don't have to explain your worth. You are the proof. And here's something they rarely tell you. The more you own your energy, the more it sorts everything around you. Some people will fall away, not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're finally doing something real. When you stop looking for validation in someone else's eyes, you start seeing yourself clearly for the first time in years. And yes, that clarity can feel lonely at first. It can feel like silence. But in that silence, something else rises. Sovereignty. Not the kind that isolates, but the kind that sets you free. You stop bending, you start standing, you stop chasing comfort, you start commanding presence. Let me ask you something real. When was the last time you showed up as your full self without apology? That version of you, the one who doesn't need to be explained or edited, that's who he's drawn to. That's who everyone remembers. Not because she followed a script, but because she wrote her own. A woman in her goddess energy does not hustle for her place in someone's life. She is not a placeholder, not an option. She is the storm and the calm, the invitation and the boundary. She does not perform to be chosen because she already knows she is the only choice that makes sense. So, take this in. Not as a lesson, but as a remembering. You are not here to earn your value, you are here to live it. She stopped explaining herself. And that's when everything changed. 3 women, 3 completely different lives, but one thing in common. Each of them reached a moment, a breaking point, or maybe a breaking open when they realized they were done living small. These are their stories. The first is Maya. Maya spent years being the almost a girlfriend, almost good enough, almost the one. She wasn't loud about it. In fact, she was graceful, understanding, always the one who waited for a text back, waited for a real commitment, waited for him to figure it out. She told herself it wasn't that bad. At least he kept coming back. At least he still cared. But deep down, she knew she was never really being chosen. One day, she stood in front of her bathroom mirror, phone in her hand, tears threatening. He had messaged her again, saying he was just not ready for something serious. She looked at herself and thought, this is not love. This is a leash. That night she didn't reply. Not with anger, not with sadness, but with nothing. She blocked his number, not to punish him, but to finally stop punishing herself. And that silence? It was the first sound of her power coming back. The second is Brielle. Brielle was the peacekeeper, the fixer, the one who always knew the right thing to say to smooth things over. Growing up, her worth was tied to how easy she was to be around. She prided herself on being low drama, low maintenance. Not like other girls, but inside, she was boiling. Every time she said yes when she meant no, a little more of her spark dimmed. Every time she laughed off something that hurt, swallowed her frustration, or bent over backward to avoid tension, she betrayed herself. Until one day, she snapped. Not in a messy way, in a sacred one. She was at dinner with her partner, and he made yet another joke at her expense. This time, something landed differently. Instead of laughing, she put down her fork, looked him in the eye, and said, "That's not funny. That's not love. And I'm not playing this game anymore." He rolled his eyes, said she was overreacting, but she didn't back down. For the first time, her anger didn't feel shameful. It felt sacred, clean, clarifying. She walked away from the table, and eventually from the relationship. Her rage became a compass, not destruction, but direction. And then there's Lila. Lila didn't explode. She imploded quietly. For years. On the outside, she had everything together. Great job. Smart. Kind. She wore a smile that made people assume she was fine. But every night, she felt empty. Like she was living on autopilot. She didn't know what she wanted anymore, just what was expected. One morning, she picked up a journal not because someone told her to, but because something inside her whispered, "Start here." What began as simple thoughts turned into questions. Then came the memories, then the anger, then the grief. She started meditating, not to escape, but to listen. She uncovered old wounds, patterns passed down from generations. And she met her shadow not as a monster, but as the missing part of her. It wasn't fast, it wasn't glamorous, but day by day, she softened toward herself. And in that softness, she found power. Now, when people meet her, they say things like, "You seem so calm, but I feel something big in you." That's the goddess. Quiet, deep, awake. Each of these women thought power looked like control, or perfection, or being picked. But it wasn't any of those things. It was truth. It was presence. It was choosing themselves out loud. And none of these stories began with someone else saving them. No perfect partner, no grand rescue. Just one decision at a time to stop hiding, to stop explaining, to stop negotiating their worth. Because the shift doesn't start outside. It starts in the moment you say, "I'm done abandoning myself." Can you feel it? That stirring inside you. That's not anxiety. That's your power waking up. It doesn't need permission. It doesn't need to be understood. It just needs to be claimed. You're not asking to be chosen anymore. You're walking like you already are. That shift isn't loud. It doesn't need to be. It lives in the way you breathe when you stop holding everything in the way you stand when you're no longer trying to be liked, just real. In the way you finally start trusting your own voice, even when it shakes. Because when you stop trying to make everyone comfortable and start getting honest with yourself, something wild and sacred begins to stir. You stop performing. You start remembering. That's when the magnetism kicks in. Not because you changed who you are, but because you returned to who you were before the world told you to be less. Goddess energy isn't about becoming irresistible to men. It's about becoming unshakably rooted in yourself. It's not about seduction. It's about recognition, your own recognition of the woman you were always meant to be. It's not a trick. It's not a pose. It's a presence. And that presence says, without words, "I'm not here to convince you. I'm here to be." There's a freedom in that. A calm kind of confidence that doesn't need to be proven. When you carry yourself like the only choice, you stop settling for being an option. You stop shrinking. You stop performing gratitude for crumbs. And here's what no one tells you until you live it. The people who are truly meant for you will not be intimidated by your fullness. They will be drawn to it. Because your wholeness gives them permission to find their own. You will no longer need to chase. You'll simply become the kind of woman people lean toward. Not because you're the loudest in the room, but because you are undeniably real. Let's be clear, this isn't about ego, it's about embodiment. It's about standing in the middle of your own life, Shoulders relaxed, heart open, finally done with waiting for someone else to tell you you're enough. You are not just a reflection of someone's desire. You are the source. And when a woman reclaims that truth, she becomes unforgettable not because of what she says or how she looks, but because of what she knows. The one who remembers who she is becomes unforgettable. So now, the question isn't how do I make them want me? It's how do I stay loyal to the woman I'm becoming? Because when you carry goddess energy, you're not out here convincing anyone of your worth. You're already moving like it's undeniable. If this stirred something in you, don't let it fade. Share this with the woman who's forgetting her light. Or leave a comment, tell us where in your life your goddess is ready to rise. You're not just here to be seen, you're here to be known.